With the Fantastic Four already in a very troublesome situation after multiple failed test screenings one after the other by Marvel Studios, by the Disney company, and Pedro Pascal and his politics are not helping the entire situation at all. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. And it's true, people are getting a lot of Pedro Pascal fatigue at this point. We know that a lot of people are very tired of this guy, seeing him in almost every single franchise out there, and really, quite frankly, almost looking the same in every single franchise and/or film that he's in, and/or television show like The Last of Us, right? One thing about all of this, though, has a lot to do with the Fantastic Four backlash and everything else going on along with it, such as female Silver Surfer, Shia LaBeouf. That's been getting a lot of pushback from Marvel fans. However, in isolation here, looking at Mel Gibson, we know that Mel Gibson has been getting very much defensive against those that are very much destroying Hollywood, destroying the film industry, those like Pedro Pascal that get way too involved in their politics and quite frankly also force their overall audience into listening to his politics. People aren't having it anymore, so let's get into this. Now, one thing about all of this is that we do know that Mel Gibson has called out things like the Harry Potter series and the whole race swapping of Snape and everything else going along with how, you know, past franchises like Star Wars and even brands like Marvel have gone downhill ever since, you know, recent years. I would say definitely within the past like 3 to 4 years at minimum. Now, to top things off here, alright, with the Walt Disney Company now in pure panic mode over Marvel, over one financial failure after the other, one major development now involves more to do with Mel Gibson going off on Pedro Pascal after he openly attacked both Marvel and The Last of Us fans. Mel delivered the following. Look, man, all I can say is that I'm an American patriot. I love this country, and what has been going on in Hollywood just needs to come to a halt. I mean, you look at these guys like Robert De Niro and even this guy Pedro Pascal. They hate their fans. They really have no respect for them and how they are the people that brought them into this business. You look at films like The Fantastic Four, which are driven by Marvel fans, and I am very aware of how beloved that brand is. Many of my buddies' sons love Marvel, and it has been a disappointment to them in recent years. But you have this Pedro Pascal guy who doesn't seem to have a care in the world about Marvel fans. This is a guy that drags politics into his career, and I know I have said this way more than 2 times, but the moment you do that, you lose over half your audience. You alienate your fan base. Nobody wants an actor getting political when promoting a product, in this case with Fantastic Four, or what they did over at HBO for The Last of Us series. Ever since Trump came into office back in 2016, we saw this negative shift in the industry with people like Pedro who are unhinged and have no desire to keep their politics to themselves. Now, look at me, I'm no perfect guy. I know I have made my mistakes in the past, but I own it, and I don't force my supporters into my political beliefs. Look, I'm no expert with comic book or superhero films, but when you have a man like Pedro Pascal going off like that and saying all of those things in the public, it's ugly and it makes you look very unattractive to the regular customer, and that's willing, of course, to give your actual product a chance. And those chances turn into all bets are off for many people once they hear your politics. This man, Pedro Pascal, said some of the nastiest things on social media in years before, and nothing was done to him by those studios. Where are the consequences is all I'm wondering about. Now guys, I think that what he's alluding to is exactly what actually did happen when he actually basically did all of those political posts on social media that were very much like how Mel described, very nasty in nature, and nothing happened to him. He was fully protected by studios like Disney, studios, of course, that have protected him through and through, no matter what he said on social media. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have others that shared their political beliefs that were nowhere near as close to what Pedro did, and they were fired instantly. And that just goes to show you that there is an actual political bias when it comes to the Hollywood sphere, the film industry, if you will. Now, thankfully, you know, the new administration kind of pressured and put pressure on that to kind of stop doing that. And we've seen a slow turn of the tide, changing that actual nature, but it hasn't quite fully recovered just yet. And he touches on that in just a second. One thing I do like about Mel Gibson is the fact that he does call it like it is. he is putting Pedro Pascal in the hot seat. He is labeling him as an actor very much like Robert De Niro, for example, that really just goes way too overboard with the politics. Now look, is Pedro a very good actor, or is he a good actor at all? Sure, he may very well have acting capabilities in some actual movies and or projects that he's actually worked on, but there's no doubt about it that people do have Pedro fatigue. And that's a given fact. People are just tired of this guy. They're tired of his nonsense, too, and his politics. And quite frankly, as well, there are a lot of people out there that never liked the guy to begin with, and that's also not helping. Now, to move on here, he goes on to actually allude further, and we are seeing this happen again with Pedro, where he openly attacks and mocks Trump supporters and remained hired by these studios like Disney and HBO. It is beyond appalling. This is the same guy that is openly defending HBO's concept of race swapping a heavily beloved Harry Potter character. I think it was Snape. And so nobody wants to hear from a man like that anymore. I'm a patriot, I love this country, and I want to see Hollywood do better. We did improve, but we haven't fully recovered just yet with people like Pedro and the studios protecting him. Now guys, that is true. We do have a lot of studios protecting, people like Pedro, where he is not fired for saying some of the most crazy things on social media, in years before and even recently, and how he's now beginning to go off the rails, especially after The Last of Us Season 2 was universally rejected by fans. And we have a lot of things going on in a similar pattern with the Fantastic Four and Marvel fans. People are just not having it when it comes to, diminishing the character Norrin Rad and just using a character Shala Bal, who only appeared in 10 pages of a comic from, a certain time ago. Nobody cares. Now, he goes on to close, it gets mentally exhausting to people that just want to enjoy the build-up to a potentially fun and successful movie. Just look at what Tom Cruise did. That's what you have to do. And you know what? Mel is right. Tom Cruise has a very, fluid and very refined system where you don't get into politics, you don't get political, you just focus on the entertainment, you focus on the product, and you get it done, and you put it out there, you market it correctly, and that's that. That's why he has a lot of successful projects. Look at Top Gun Maverick, look at Dead Reckoning, look at The Final Reckoning, and look at what he's doing right now with Top Gun 3, and how he wants to actually build up a potential, Days of Thunder sequel, I believe it is. But again, we know that Mel Gibson is one of the few actors that calls it like it is, and basically Hollywood has not fully recovered just yet. Do I believe it will fully recover? That really all depends on the people, quite honestly, and whether or not they want to actually spend their time and energy in the theater again, based on what has been going on since 2016. Now look, you are seeing a slow turn of the tide, but with Marvel, obviously there's just not enough support anymore. A movie like Thunderbolts, which was, a rather entertaining movie, it wasn't bad per se, it wasn't like a terrible movie, but even a movie that was okay or good, like that, really just did not go anywhere with the budget. We know the overall box office did not actually help Disney in that certain scenario. But overall, I would love to hear what everyone has to say about all of this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.